What does your Friday night look like? Maybe you watch Smackdown, and maybe you don't, because hey, it's Friday night. Well, starting in August, AEW will join the competition for your attention when they introduce their new show, Rampage. Will you watch another hour of wrestling, even if it's on Friday nights? My name is Ryan Joy, and I run MinutesToBellTime.com, a website and database tracking pro wrestling from around the world. On today's show, we're talking about wrestling's second show. What made them successful? What made them tank? John DeConnie's in the house, and this is the Daily Wrestling News Show for May 20, 2021, where we work together to understand all that's happening in wrestling. Here we are. I forgot to add us into the studio during the intro video, but here we are, and we're going to talk about the new second shows coming up and AEW's Rampage.
Yes.
So here's the news, John. Starting August 13th, 2021, AEW is going to have a new weekly series airing at Fridays on 10 called Rampage. Starting in 2022, AEW Dynamite's moving to TBS. TNT has committed to 4 annual AEW specials on TNT, and PW Insider has said that the word going around is that this new deal is worth 8 figures to AEW. So it's a really big number, but we don't know if that's over 4 years, 2 years, whatever.
Yeah.
But financially very good for AEW. So, John, what do you think of AEW's new television deal?
I think it's fantastic that Turner Broadcasting is all in on this product. Like, there's not, okay, we've got a 2-year deal and let's see what's coming down the pike. They are all in on this product, and that what could be better, to know that you have this secondary company and they are locked in. They're not going away. They're not, walking on eggshells. They don't have to do wacky things like give you, Goldberg and Hogan on free TV right before a pay-per-view because they're dying for ratings. So, they're doing their share with the rating. They're doing pretty good in the ratings. It's just good news. It's good news for wrestling on the whole.
It is good news. And 8 figures, that's $1 billion. And and like I said before, I don't know if that's over 4 years or 2 years or that's this year. I know the WWE deals, each of them, the SmackDown deal, the Raw deal, and the Peacock deal, those were for $1 billion over 4 years.
Right.
So it kind of stands to reason that might be somewhat of an industry standard, but I'm really talking from a place I don't know the details on. But point being is that Tony Khan said that the financial upside of the new agreement gives them the opportunity to continue and invest in AEW to serve the most important people in the industry, the fans, the wrestlers, the staff, and the sponsors. So I think this is a really good signal. I think that AEW has the second show coming. They promised this for a long time. They've got it. They've got all the negotiations done. It seems like everything's going down the right path. But here's me being a naysayer. But second shows aren't always great.
Right.
And I have some reservations. I have some concerns. First and foremost, worry number 1, 10 p.m. on a Friday night in the middle of the summer for the debut. Oh,
that was a head scratcher for me. Like, okay, so the week's already filled up. You've got 5 days of wrestling already. So if you were going to tack on anyway, like Friday, I know Friday's had a little bit of a resurgence. You get some, you get the Netflix releases so people can binge over the weekend and whatnot. So Friday TV is not as much of a dead spot as it used to be. But Friday at the tail end of prime time, like, why wouldn't you tack it on to, Wednesday or Thursday? It just seems like an odd decision to me.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a rough spot. I guess the pandemic itself has improved probably at home watching on Fridays. So, and it also doesn't run up against SmackDown.
Right.
They also have Monday programming, Tuesday programming, Wednesday programming. We know from the example that Raw has set that third hour always tanks.
Yeah.
So I don't feel like they could necessarily put on a third hour on Wednesdays, but it's just a little worrisome. And my wife says that I always look at the worst possible scenario, and I think that prepares me for whatever I have to deal with. But
yeah,
that's my first worry, is that time slot is not as attractive as perhaps some others would be. So here's my second thing. Tony Khan and his team need to make Rampage must-watch television. The main storylines need to weave through that broadcast. It can't be a second show that is like a second coming of Dark. It can't be that. It's got to be a main show if it's going to drive ratings. So I'm sure that they'll do that, but I'm just saying now, like, that's got to be done, right?
Now you do deeper dives on this stuff than myself, so let me ask you. I don't know if it's been mentioned in any of the press releases. Dark and Elevation will still stay as is in general?
Yeah, there was no announcement about Dark and Elevation going away. In fact, they said in the stories, they said that it's adding to their existing lineup, which includes Dark Elevation, Dark Dynamite.
Interesting. Okay, that is. I mean, they certainly have the roster for it, but that is a lot of wrestling to put forward in a week.
Yeah, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday now. The only night they didn't hit is Thursday, and of course that's because Impact owns that night, as they have told us. So, John, is there things that you're thinking about that AEW must do to help with this second show? And by thinking about that, I'm thinking about some of the shows that we've had in the past, the second shows, the Smackdowns, the Thunders. What things have you thought in the past that those shows have done right and have done wrong that AEW should learn from here?
Yeah, well, certainly it seems whenever you talk about AEW, what comes up is don't make the mistakes WCW made.
Mm-hmm.
Don't start. I'm sure we will get maybe that very first show we will get some celebrity involvement. Something that makes it we got to tune in on Friday and see. But hopefully they don't go to the well again with Mike Tyson. But they bring somebody in that's going to draw. Don't go too heavy on that. Don't go heavy on the celebrity involvement because it's not going to be maintainable. And wrestling fans of a certain age immediately start to cringe and think of David Arquette. So Stay away from that. And you don't want it to be you don't. It will be the B show, quote unquote, but let's not let it be where the Good Brothers are always, the Elite is on Dynamite, and then we'll throw Nakazawa on there just to remind everybody that the Elite are running the show and whatnot. Like, don't make it a painfully obvious B show.
I think this is how I summarize this in my notes.
Sure.
Rampage is the second show. Right. Just by nature of the fact that Dynamite came first, Rampage is the second show, but it cannot be a second-rate show,
yes.
Right? That's the difference. So when you talk about the celebrities and the title defenses and the stipulation matches like Blood and Guts, we should see the same frequency of that stuff on Rampage that we do on Dynamite.
Sure.
And I think the only thing that has me worried that may not happen is that, look, the 10 o'clock slot on a Friday, the ratings are probably way less important in that slot.
Sure.
AEW is going to be fixated on making sure Dynamite ratings stay really high. So I could see a scenario where they get focused on the creative for that particular show, and that this show becomes sort of a second thought. And I'm saying I don't think it can do that. They can't do that. They have to maintain that on both shows.
Yeah. Maybe they could give themselves a little extra juice for that show if they do one of the things that WCW, I feel, did do well. And, okay, so your TNT championship is presumably going to become your TBS championship. So do away with the TNT name, even though that's where Rampage is, right? It's going to be on TNT?
That's right.
Okay. But create, let's say, a television title. You know, use it as, you know, the story, the buildups happen on Dark and Elevation, and then the title, like have a title match, because I don't see Lance Archer, Miro, I don't see them doing weekly open challenges and whatnot. You know, that was good for Cody as a gimmick early on. It was good when Darby realized he was never defending, so he, you know, had a little run there. But I don't see that coming from the big hosses. Create a television championship, put that on Rampage, and let there be a title shot, or, you know, some build up, some exciting match around that title every week.
And is it a situation where on Dynamite they have a match that determines the match on Friday?
Absolutely.
Right? Like, you know, like for instance, the Friday Night Dynamite that's coming up, we know it's Dante Martin versus Miro. Now, Dante Martin appears to be pulled out of obscurity to be the lamb they are leading to slaughter here. But they could have had a match somewhere along the line that said, okay, Dante Martin's going to face Jungle Boy, and he got a great win over Jungle Boy, so now he's going to face, you know, Miro. They could do something like that. Just the big thing is, I think we summarize. I think it summarized well is that it's the second show, but it can't be second rate.
Right.
And when I think about the Thunders, and when I think about SmackDown, man, it's still here all these years later.
Yeah.
And so something right got done there.
Sure.
And perhaps it was the brand split. Perhaps, you know, that drove interest to SmackDown that might not have always been there before. Thunder is kind of a different story. Thunder it started live. They actually drew great big huge crowds in the beginning, but then eventually travel and finances and things got involved, and Thunder then moved to a sometimes live, sometimes taped.
Right.
And then it moved to fully taped. And then it moved to taped right after Nitro goes off the air. So as times got tough, that, you know, that thing got squeezed more and more and more. I think Rampage needs to feel like its own show, and hopefully it has the success of SmackDown. Wade Keller wrote in 2017, looking back at Thunder, he said, you could in a way call this the beginning of the end. I'm not sure what the turning point was, but Thunder is probably as good of a turning point you could pick out in terms of WCW making a pretty rapid ascension, and then a somewhat slow, ominous decline, and then the cliff. Thunder was kind of the cliff.
Yeah.
So I don't think he's talking about the launch of Thunder.
Right.
He might be talking about, you know, watching Thunder, kind of the different iterations it went to. You kind of see what was happening in WCW.
Exactly.
So, you know, Rampage, I think, has a great shot because I think so many people trust AEW so much, and make good on our trust.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that AEW has right now, is that the way they're not focusing on the 10-year-olds in the crowd. They're focusing on the 30 and 40-year-olds who have been wrestling fans their whole life. They always give you those little throwbacks to remind you of the good old days and whatnot. And they're just the booking so far has really been pretty good. So we trust them, and going forward, I think they'll do the right things here. But if I can make one more, you know, on the do's and don'ts list, I don't know whether or not he'll be involved with it necessarily, but if Paul White is involved with that show in any way, shape, or form, don't listen to him when he says face and heel turns every other week are a good thing. You know, they may have worked for his, you know, Hall of Fame career, but not a good thing in general.
Yes, he switched back and forth more often than face and heel more often than he switched his underwear. Let's be very clear about that. So, all of this said, I think I presented kind of the negative side of this. This is a positive story. This is a great thing, and I guess this is mental preparation of. I've said the things that I think they need to do. You know, I'm sure they're not listening to me, but you know, it's a matter of these are the things that when I look at wrestling, and I've watched wrestling for a very, very long time, and I've seen the Shotgun Saturday nights, I've seen the Sunday night heats, I've seen Superstars and Main Event and all these other shows, 205 Live. I've seen all these shows
Yeah.
come and not necessarily succeed. And to a lesser degree, even NXT, I would say, WWE launched Smackdown, and that was wildly successful. And to this date, as of right now, I don't think they've replicated that with NXT in terms of if you look at ratings metrics and things like that. So it's not an easy thing to do.
Certainly.
To spin off another show. We can't just say, hey, brand loyalty, all the fans that are watching Raw are going to go watch NXT.
Yeah.
So AEW's got a million people thereabouts watching Dynamite. It does not mean that they're going to have a million people watching Rampage.
No.
So they got to work hard. Good luck. Yeah. I'm not doing anything Friday nights at 10, so I'll be there.
Yeah, prepare for the bad, bask in the good,
That's right. All right. That said, I think that was our main topic for today. We have a bunch of other news though to get into, including the Will Ospreay vacancy, the NXT releases. There's a bunch of other stuff coming up after the break. First, let me tell you how you can support the Daily Wrestling News Show. If you love the Daily Wrestling News Show, then I want to tell you how you can support us. First, check out bodyslamclothes.com. You can get a variety of shirts for just $20, and all of them come in the super soft style, and the price you see includes all sizes and shipping. Get 10% off 2 or more shirts with the promo code SHIRTS10. Go to bodyslamclothes.com right now to check it out. And join Joey Jarzanka, Ian Schreier, and Rob DeLuca on Friday nights for the Primetime Rundown. They take you through the world of sports. The show kicks off at 6 p.m. on the Eastern Observer. And each Tuesday, Al Carl hosts the Essential Wrestling Podcast alongside John Smith, myself, John DeConnie, and Gary Mahaffey. It's another week of updates and highlights in the world of wrestling. Here are our analysis on who we think is going to win the week's matches. Coverage begins at 6 p.m. on the Eastern Observer. And Pro Wrestling Pick'em. It's a place where you can join or host a Pick'em League to test your predictive skills in the world of pro wrestling. Create an account and join a league now at ProWrestlingPick'em.com so you can play against your friends or play against the universe. And the Body Slam Brigade newsletter, currently going out to over 4,200 people each Friday. It consolidates all the top stories in professional wrestling into a quick-to-read email written by me for you for free. Sign up now at BodySlamBrigade.com. And of course, this show, the Daily Wrestling News Show. We're here every day, Monday through Thursday, and occasionally on Friday. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, or watch us live on Facebook and YouTube at 10 a.m. This is the Daily Wrestling News Show, and we thank you for your support. Okay, shameless plugs are over. Let's get back into the news. So, as of this morning, just released, and I'm wearing Will Ospreay's shirt, Aerial Assassin. He sustained a neck injury on May 4th. He's going to be forced to vacate the World Championship. New Japan has not come out with what they are going to do next in terms of the world title picture.
Right.
It's up in the air. But Travis and I will probably dig into that more deeply on Tuesday.
Yeah, this is just terrible news. You hope this is one of those things where it's not, he's never going to be the same again. Hopefully he makes a full recovery and then, makes a run back at that title, because there was so much good stuff coming down the line for him, because his I've only seen maybe not even a handful of his matches, but jaw droppers every time. So I was very much looking forward to his run, and hopefully it will resume somewhere down the line. And as to what they're going to do do with the heavyweight title, I will very much look forward to seeing what you and Travis come up with, because I'm sure you'll have an 8-man tournament picked out or something like that, and you guys will do the deep dive.
Well, the interesting thing about this is that Will Ospreay, I think, was very important to New Japan's plans as they expand out of Japan. They've got a lot of work that they're doing to build up in the U.S. market, and even in New Zealand and Australia and England. Will Ospreay is an English-speaking talent, and they don't have a whole ton of those around.
Yeah.
So I think that he was critical to those plans, and that this is somewhat of a setback. So I think they're going to have to be very creative in what they do, especially since they were just getting things rolling with Strong. Strong was gaining momentum and stuff, and I think they're looking at that as a very important property. So best of luck, New Japan. We'll be talking about this a lot over the next few days, and I assume hopefully by Tuesday they have released some more news about what they're going to do. But if not, Travis and I will have our thoughts for sure. So NXT released a whole bunch of people yesterday. Here's the list as I know it. Vanessa Bourne, Kavita Devi, Jessamine Duke, Ezra Judge, Skylar Story, Drake Wirtz, Jake Clemens, and Alexander Wolf. Obviously, the biggest name on the list is Alexander Wolf, John. He just basically got written off television on, Tuesday?
Yeah, that must have been. You wonder if he knew it was coming.
Yeah.
He walked out of the video call with Walter 2 weeks ago. He got a beat down this week, and then he got told to hit the bricks. So you feel bad for him, but I'm sure he'll pop up somewhere.
Yeah, 100%. And he said, he went to Twitter and he said, just for the record, my WWE contract will expire on June 15th. That means I'm a free agent on June 16th. I have a lot in my head right now, so let's keep it short. Thank you, WWE NXT, WWE for 6 years, and bye-bye. So that's Alexander Wolf, a really important talent. Nikki Cross went on Twitter and she thanked him, for the time that they spent together in Sanity. Same thing with Killian Dane, Nikki Cross's husband. And, so he's a very important talent. He's got a friend over in Impact, but of course he's from Germany. So it'd be interesting to see where he ends up.
Yeah.
Now, also on the list was Drake Wirtz. And Drake was at one point the lead referee at NXT. And there was a whole bunch of drama around Drake. He has apparently had heat with the locker room for over a year, dating back to as late as the In Your House pay-per-view they had last year. And if you're interested in that, I would go ahead and Google it. You'll find it. It's out there. But essentially, Drake was bringing some of his political and religious beliefs into the locker room, and it was offending a lot of people. So there you go. That's your story on Drake. Now, referee Jake Clemens was also let go, and he went to Twitter and he said, thank you. And then immediately, Absolute Intense Wrestling announced his return to the promotion on June 18th. So Jake Clemens is already finding work. Good for you, Jake. Ezra Judge says, I may be down but never out, bent but not destroyed. The grind continues, built for this. I didn't come this far just to come this far. Until next time, thank you all. Love you all. I'll be back. So positive message coming from Ezra Judge. It's good to see these people when they're looking at sort of the upside of things and opportunities. Brandy Lauren says, I don't know what to say right now other than thank you. And Vanessa Bourne did a little video on Facebook or on Twitter. And it was very, basically what she said was she thanked the fans for their kind words over the years. She tells the internet trolls to be nice, and it shouldn't be that hard to be decent human beings to people you don't even know. She's excited for the next chapter, but she is disappointed that she never got to wrestle zombies. Now that's dripping in sarcasm, so take it for what it is. But it's good to see the NXT people that are getting let go are mostly positive and I think well connected enough to find new work.
Certainly, yeah. And then it seems like when you get that WWE PC training, you've got a step ahead of anybody who went to it's not to poo-poo local wrestling schools, but there just seems to be a different shine from the people who get that PC center, that performance center training. I mean, look at Deanna. They couldn't find anything for her in NXT, and she's running the show over at Impact.
Well, you know what, they probably focus a lot more in WWE on the television aspect of it. Preparing somebody for television. I'm sure, yes, of course they do all the in-ring training and stuff, but WWE is specifically a television company. So as opposed to an indie school, which might not necessarily be training you for television. So when you see an NXT PC person get let go and then appear on Impact like Deanna, like you're saying, Deanna's an excellent wrestler and she had all that television training. So yeah, good point. AEW Full Gear is headed to St. Louis on November 6th. So Full Gear already have a date announcement for that. That's interesting, out there in St. Louis. At least we know there'll be a crowd.
That's a big positive. That was one of the things that I forgot to mention on show 100. It seemed almost too easy, so I skipped over it on my list. But what's that thing you want to see in the next 5 months? And full buildings. I want to see fans.
Yeah, absolutely. Now here's an interesting story. WWE, not known for tag team wrestling. Of course, they've always had tag team divisions. Of course, they've always had some great tag teams.
Sure.
But they never really have been the focus of the company. But in any case, starting on June 2nd, WWE is doing a limited series for Peacock, naming the top 50 tag teams of all time. So, John DeConnie, who's number one?
Okay. Yeah. You have to understand I come at this from a Northeast bias. Okay. I grew up where, there was a little AWA on ESPN at weird hours that I would stumble across occasionally. But unless I was down the shore at my grandfather's house, who, my father didn't watch wrestling, didn't care about wrestling. Grandpa watched some wrestling, and he was in that South Jersey market where they pull in a little bit of Philly stations. But until Nitro, I was basically WWF centric, and that was it. So my list is going to be heavily weighted in that direction. And there's no recency bias here because I have the perspective of these older teams. So having not seen half of the Road Warriors career, I know they are the standard bearer, but at the top of my list, it's going to be the Dudleys. And it's going to be like 1 and 1A. Dudleys, and then the Road Warriors right below them. But it's going to be the Dudleys for me.
Oh, that's a great pick. The Dudleys. Honestly, they were not the team I thought of, and they should have been a team that I thought of. I have Demolition on the top of my list. And it's interesting I say that because I know it's probably a good chance they might not even make the top 50 for WWE because of lawsuits and things that are going in there. But it's the way I would describe my bias here, because I clearly have one, is that Demolition was only around for 3 or 4 years or whatever, but it's when I was watching wrestling kind of at my youngest.
Sure.
So I'd always, since I've known wrestling, I knew them. And even though they were only around for that short period of time, I've kind of been a fan of them for all these years. Whereas there's teams that have come since then that, as far as in-ring work goes, blow them out of the water, right?
Sure.
I mean, the Demolition punched and kicked and clotheslined and stuff. That's about it. The same can be said for a lot of people, but they kind of they have it for me in my head. So for me, that's kind of where I would rank them, is way up there. But when I think of the other teams that are probably going to be in WWE's top 10 list, I'm thinking of, the Hart Foundation, the New Age Outlaws, the New Day, the Usos, maybe the Rockers, maybe the Brainbusters, even though the Brainbusters were a 1-year team in WWE.
Yeah.
They have kind of a legacy that WWE owns the intellectual property for, so maybe they'll consider that too. But yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I would be very surprised if the Road Warriors weren't number 1 on this list. They didn't have a huge WWF run. They had 3 or 4 different ones. None of them extraordinarily memorable, but there's stuff that they did in, Crockett and below, before they got WWF. That's where they really made their name.
Yeah, that's where they made tag team wrestling main event worthy. They are, every tag team that has anyone who has been a tag team wrestler for the majority of their career and has had a good career and has made their living off that and is wealthy now because of wrestling as tag team wrestler, they owe a debt of gratitude to the Road Warriors, no doubt, because they made tag team wrestling cool.
Yeah. So you had brought up the Dudleys, and it's hard to talk about the Dudleys without talking about Edge and Christian and the Hardys.
Sure.
So in that top 10, I wouldn't be surprised to see all 3 of those teams.
Yeah.
Plus the Road Warriors, Maybe you get New Age Outlaws or something in there too. A lot of AEW talent we're talking about, though. So I don't know how far they'll expose those groupings. So yeah, so Edge and Christian from Al Carl, of course. Yep, that's what we. Yep.
And it'll be interesting. Is this going to be the top 50 WWF, or I mean, are we going to see in the top 5, the Rock and Roll Express, the Midnight Express, the top 10, 15? Are we going to see the Freebirds? Since they didn't really have runs in the WWF, it'd be interesting to see how inclusive they are.
Yeah, I always think that when they do these lists, they're going to consider everything they own, which will include those properties, but you can't say for sure. So, but yeah, the team you won't see in there is the Young Bucks. You're not going to see them. They don't even exist.
Good point. Very good point.
Time frame. So, so there we go. And then next week, we had Dynamite last night. We haven't even talked about Dynamite from last night, and I think that's all right. A lot happened. AEW's news was certainly more pertaining to the television show, but next week on Dynamite, there's a whole bunch of stuff that got announced. Miro versus Dante Martin for the TNT Championship, sort of the one title match they have next week. Joey Janela versus Adam Page. The weigh-in of Cody and Anthony Ogogo, Jade Cargill's Open Challenge, a celebration of the Inner Circle, Uno and Grayson versus Sky and Page. Orange Cassidy answers Kenny Omega on whether or not he will vacate his spot in the championship match at Double or Nothing, and then a special announcement about the buy-in. So a busy week next Friday for Dynamite, because it's not going to be on Tuesday or Wednesday when it normally is. So plenty going on with AEW next week. John, anything major out of the show last night that you want to bring up as particularly newsworthy?
No, not particularly newsworthy, just, particularly entertaining. The line of the night came right during the first match when JR was explaining how Christian and his long legs helped him get out of a particular move. Christian goes 6'2", 6'3", and Taz piped up, yeah, I think he's about 6'2". He's about an inch taller than me. So, that was my chuckle for the evening right out of the gate.
Right. If Taz is standing on a ladder, Christian is 1 inch taller. But yeah, everything about Dynamite is setting up for Double or Nothing, which is coming up very soon. We did have a match announcement, 2 match announcements. In fact, we are going to have the Young Bucks versus Kingston and Moxley, and we are going to have what was the other match that was announced?
Miro and Archer.
Miro and Archer is announced. Also, Sting and Darby versus Page and Sky.
Yes.
So. Now, Al Carl chimed in just after we finished talking about the tag teams with a tag team that we may have forgotten, and that is Sasha and Bayley. As I could see them making the top 10, not top 10 or so.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah. There's so
all right. So just
there's such a wealth of tag teams to talk about, but yes, we definitely did forget Sasha and Bayley. So tip of the cap to Al Carl.
Absolutely. Now, tonight we have more wrestling going on tonight. On Impact, there is Finn Juice defending the tag titles against Ace Austin and Madman Fulton. This is on Impact, along with Kiera Hogan versus Neil Dashwood and Rohit Raju versus Jake Something. On NXT UK, we have A-Kid defending the Heritage Cup against Tyler Bate and the Supernova Sessions with Ilya Dragunov. And on Dark Side of the Ring tonight, it's the Collision in Korea. This is obviously a New Japan WCW mashup show that they did years ago, the biggest attendance ever for a pro wrestling event. So should be an interesting take from Dark Side of the Ring tonight. John, anything about tonight's lineups in all of those that's really got your eye that you're most looking forward to?
Well, yeah, it's something that you glossed right over, and this is very unlike you because you are the newsman. When the swing man is getting in the ring, that's newsworthy. Okay. So we've got Swinger and Hernandez versus Triple XL on BTI tonight. Don't miss it.
Don't you dare miss that. Johnny Swinger and Hernandez. That's the tag team I never thought we'd need.
Just can't see these things coming.
All right, well, that's pretty much our show for the day. John, I don't have trivia for you, so you win either way.
It's understandable. I already got my one bite at the apple earlier this week and botched it, so it's understandable.
Yep, very good. So it's a full three-way tie. You, Al Carl, and John Smith all have 1 point this month. So very good. All right. Well, like I said, that's our show. John, anything else we didn't cover in the world of wrestling today?
No, I think we did it soup to nuts as always, sir.
All right. Well, for John, I'm Ryan, and we will see you on Monday.
Good.